Dan, who has to prove the most to you in week one?
So I use this assignment to figure out not like who has the most pressure on them or what is the most exciting national narrative, but rather who needs to prove that they are something that they haven't been very clearly. Who out there is saying, man, we haven't been able to figure this element of college football out, and now it's week one, and now we're in a situation where it would be really nice if we could prove that we are this thing we want to be. I have number one, Nebraska's offense.
Yeah.
So Nebraska's playing Cincinnati in Kansas City, yes? Neutral site.
Arrowhead, yep.
There will be a considerable amount of attention on this game. Not the biggest game of the weekend, but I think there's rightfully going to be a lot of attention on this game. They haven't been able to figure out an explosive offense during Matt Rhule's time there. And because they're invested in Matt Rhule, because they're invested in Dylan Raiola, because they're now invested in a couple new receivers that they hope bring some pop to the offense, because they're paying Dana Holgorsen, former high-profile coordinator and head coach, a bunch of money to run this offense now, I think there is an extremely large amount of pressure on this Nebraska team to figure out offense now. They're not paying for this program to be a Pinstripe Bowl team. All due respect to the Pinstripe Bowl. Arthur Avenue, shout it out. But I am positive that if this team shows what it has shown these past couple of years on offense, things are going to start collapsing in Lincoln. And so I think it has to be week one. Show me. They showed it a little bit last year, the first half of that Colorado game, but it just sort of fizzled out pretty quickly. This needs to be an even bigger step forward for this offense. I think there's an immense amount of pressure on this offense to show a lot more.
Yeah, that game is Thursday, so tonight, as many people are listening to this,
right,
at 9 p.m. Apologies in advance to anybody listening to this on Saturday, but
right.
Look, it still holds.
Yeah.
It still holds. Whether you're listening to this early or late, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of pressure on.
And I'll give you some
Nebraska to make it go.
I'll give you some quotes if it works out and if it doesn't work out, so you can pre-hear my reaction. You know what? Good for Nebraska, right? They really needed to show it, and they showed it, and that makes the Big Ten more exciting. That makes the ability to watch Nebraska football more exciting all season long. All right, that was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Now,
authentic.
Here's the other one. Man, you couldn't figure that out against Cincinnati? Like, Cincinnati defense should be fine this year, but to come out that flat and unable to address what clearly needed to be addressed, I'm not saying they can't do it these next few weeks. That was pretty disappointing. Did I cover?
I think you're good.
Okay.
I think you're all set.
All right.
I think Miami has a lot to prove.
Give me something specific.
I think in particular, Mario Cristobal needs to prove that not only can he go out there in an advantageous spot, just having this Notre Dame game at home in week one, and prove that he can win a game like this, but I think throughout the course of the season, he needs to prove that they're not going to have some of these brain farts, late game situations, not going to find themselves in a situation later in the year.
Yeah.
On the road at Pitt, lose a game like that could essentially kick them out of the playoffs. All of that is very forward-looking, but I think with respect to what we've got in week one here, they've got this Notre Dame game at home. Notre Dame comes into the state of Florida with a brand-new quarterback. Again, it surprised some folks that they even named him starting quarterback, despite the fact that he had the name attached to him and that there was a lot of assumption in the Notre Dame world that it was always going to be C.J. Carr. Miami's got a very, very good front. Miami's got a very, very good offensive line. Miami's got a seasoned quarterback. The offense might look different.
Yep.
But it's all there for them. And so if they find themselves in a close game situation against Notre Dame, which I think is likely, and I can talk through a little bit later, Miami has to prove that they're not going to fall victim to some of the stuff that's jumped up and gotten them in the past. They have to find a way to win this game. I think it means more to Miami than it does to Notre Dame.
Sure. That's all understandable. I have this, and more specifically the Miami defense, in one of my Dannerable mentions. That wasn't in my top 5, but specifically, like, I want to hear, it's Sean McDonough, I believe, doing this game.
McDonough and McElroy, yeah.
I want to hear third quarter, fourth quarter, if it's a tight game, I want to hear something along the lines of, like, crucial stop there for the Canes. Like, something where, like, good for Miami getting off the field when they needed to. something in that realm of like, and Miami's defense started out pretty well last year when that Florida game was particularly impressive, but against Notre Dame, like prove that you can make CJ Carr feel like a first-time starter in a hostile environment, right?
Yep.
That's what a team with Miami's hopes and aspirations should be doing to CJ Carr, and not a new look Notre Dame offense, but certainly a new look starting quarterback and what is going to be asked of him. I think Miami needs to prove they can do that.
Who else you got?
All right, number 2, I have LSU's defense being prepared for the task at hand.
Yeah.
So of all of the things on the field, we have a good handle on what Clemson's offense should be at its best and what Clemson's defense should be at its best, what LSU's offense should be at its best. LSU having to prove that, again, they've addressed what needs help on this defense and that they can actually come out and get off the field in a crucial situation. Like, I'm pretty aligned with that, although it's a more difficult task because LSU is on the road here. But Brian Kelly not winning those openers, LSU's defense another year disappointing given what LSU's defense should be basically every year. I think there's a lot to prove from this LSU defense in week 1. For your consideration on any podcast player, search Solid Verbal, find us, and hit follow or subscribe. It's just that easy.
I can't believe we made it 3 items in and we haven't mentioned Florida State yet.
I don't even have them down here.
You don't think Florida State
You think Florida State has
prove?
something to prove to you against Alabama in week 1?
I do, actually, yeah.
Okay.
I do, because, this game, and again, we'll talk through this one a little bit more, but this game is like the ultimate contrast between where one program's at versus the other. Florida State tried the transfer thing before last season. It didn't work. Famously, it did not work, or infamously, I guess. This year they went out, they again took to the portal, and I think Mike Norvell just needs to prove that even if they find themselves a 2-touchdown dog at home against Alabama in a game that I think we all expect they're going to lose, and losing to Alabama, this version of Alabama certainly is not a black eye, but they need to prove pretty much right out of the chute that this is going to be an offense that feels like it's going somewhere, that the players that they have now added to this offense are going to make it better than it was a year ago, that Gus Malzahn coming up from UCF is going to make the offense better. I don't know if Florida State fans out there are expecting that there's going to be like a 3-point spread between these two teams when all is said and done, but I think what they are expecting and what they're hoping for is competency. There needs to be a base level competency on display that can just serve as like a proof of concept that when they play some of these other teams on the schedule, this is going to be a team that's prepared. It's going to be an offense that has some pop, and they're not going to find themselves in the same situation that they were in a year ago. So, again, totally separate from the result. We need to at least see and feel like this is going somewhere with Tom Castellanos, with Gus Malzahn, and with whatever version of this whole thing that Norvell's put together.
I see where you're coming from. It's not unreasonable, but here's the unreasonable part of what you said. Florida State didn't go 7-5 last year. Florida State didn't go 6-6 last year. When you go 2-10, you have basically nothing to prove against an excellent team. You have to prove something against Virginia.
Listen,
you have to prove something against Pitt.
If you're an annual 2-10 team, if that's always who you are,
buddy, same coach.
If that's always who you are,
sure,
then I think you can make the case that they don't have anything to prove. But this is a blue blood program. Okay, they're not used to going 2-10. That was very much, hopefully, a bug, not a feature. And so Mike Norvell's got a lot to prove. There's a reason that I think he's on the hot seat, and rightfully so, because what happened last year at Florida State is not acceptable. They need to get better in a hurry. He understood that assignment, but now he needs to prove that he can put this cast of characters together and actually get something more out of it. So we'll see. I think they've got a lot to prove.
You don't sprint out of comas, Ty. You ever see somebody do that?
No, I can't say I have.
So you got to prove that you're a 6-6 team. And I just don't think, for better or worse, whatever Florida State looks like against Alabama, it's not going to be in any sort of indictment or yes, if they beat Alabama, great. They have proven to me that they have done something extraordinary this offseason. But to ask them to sort of look competent after what they did last year, and there's new players in here, still the same head coach, same locker room, same practice fields. I don't know. It's more of a Pitt, Miami type situation. Not even Miami, Pitt and Virginia situation for Florida
All right,
State. So
fine.
I don't know. We disagree. My next
Give me
item.
one more. Give me one more.
I'll rifle through a bunch. Let's go with Jackson Arnold. Just Jackson
goes
Arnold.
Without saying, right?
Okay, Jackson Arnold. Obviously in a terrible situation with regard to offensive line injuries and receiver injuries and general offensive malaise and, emotional injuries incurred at Oklahoma. But this opportunity, and Baylor may have addressed situations successfully on its defense in the back half and defend the pass and give up fewer big plays. Jackson Arnold, from the jump, is expected to go on the road and prove that he is the guy to take Auburn to a level that we haven't seen under Hugh Freeze at Auburn. And that is finishing games, being boringly competent, not making huge mistakes in the passing game, in the red zone, third downs, whatever. That I think there's an enormous amount that Jackson Arnold and Auburn's offense need to prove this week, because it's only going to get more difficult with this schedule. So because of the shortcomings that he's had, some self-inflicted, some just situationally, I think Jackson Arnold and Auburn and this passing attack have a ton to prove against Baylor. And in this specific spot as well, which is also pre-Saturday, right? It's a Friday night game.
Right.
So I think there's a ton to prove there. My Dannerable mentions, by the way, I have A&M Pop against UTSA's not-so-great defense from last year. Texas picking up where they left off. Syracuse proving that they're more than just Kyle McCord covering up for defensive issues. Minnesota not playing a close week one. The shape of Colorado's offense needs to be obvious. Bryce Underwood processing power. I need to learn the NVIDIA, Intel, take your pick, qualities of Bryce Underwood against, I think, New Mexico. That's a prove it. Malik Murphy being a worthwhile investment for Oregon State. Like, there's a ton here that I mean, we'll get to it in the preview, but I can't wait.